Is anybody even still watching this TV show at this point? The Last of Us Season 2 is HBO's series that is crashing out massively right now. Everybody saw this coming. Fans saw this coming. Gamers even saw this coming. And Season 2 has officially announced that it has dropped a shocking 55% in viewership since the end of Season 1, and that is just the beginning. In today's video, we're going to look at what went wrong, how Neil Druckmann ignored the fans yet again, and the parallels between this Backlash and what happened when The Last of Us Part 2 came out as a video game, and why this show is ultimately destined to crash and burn with Season 3. So buckle up, this is going to be a good one about The Last of Us Season 2. So special shout out to all of you 88,800 legends that are subscribed to this channel right now, and the 50% of you that are not subscribed, consider hitting that subscribe today. I would greatly appreciate it. So let's start with the numbers, right? Season 1, The Last of Us. What did that end with? That ended with around 8.2 million viewers tuning into the show. It's a show that, for the most part, even though people had its issues with episode 3 especially, it still had a pretty decent showing because people liked where the story was going overall. But here's the problem, and we all knew this was coming. Gamers especially knew this was coming. It was only a matter of time before the plot points in Part 2 were going to come out, and everybody knew that Season 2 was going to begin those plot points. And once they hit the TV screens, we all knew what was going to happen. Everybody was going to be highly upset, especially if they decided to do what they were going to do with Joel like they did in the video game. And that's exactly what happened. And they did it early, by the way. They ended up removing Joel from the story in episode number 2 of Season 2, which is very, very early, so they didn't even bother waiting until the end in order to try to utilize Pedro Pascal as much as possible. They wanted to go for the shock factor right off the beginning, and now they're experiencing what happens when you do that. So again, the numbers for Season 1 ended with around 8.2 million viewers coming in. At the end of Season 2, it's down 55%, which means that's fewer than 4 million viewers came back for Season 2. That is not just a dip. That is a hemorrhage, ladies and gentlemen. This show is literally bleeding out. HBO has seen declines like this before, but this is one of the worst year-over-year retention rates for a prestige show in the last decade. So let's get into why that is. Gamers again warned them back in 2020. The Last of Us Part 2 was met with massive backlash. Joel's death, the character of Abby, the Force narrative, the moral relativism, everything. Fans hated everything. The backlash wasn't just because fans were toxic. It was because the game spit in the face of what made the original beloved in the first place. But instead of learning about that, Druckmann doubled down. Fast forward to 2023, and now we have a live-action adaptation doing the exact same thing when The Last of Us initially aired. Neil Druckmann has positioned himself as the visionary behind The Last of Us, but vision means nothing without the execution to back it. He ignored feedback from millions of fans after the second game. He gaslit the audience by claiming they just didn't get it, and now he's doing the same thing to TV viewers. And while viewership plummets, Druckmann continues to boast about his artistic integrity, which ultimately is fine at the end of the day, but if nobody wants to see it, you only got yourself to blame. Now, Season 2 has been a tonal mess. Bloated scenes, weak pacing, and a lack of Joel's emotional weight. Bella Ramsay is trying, but God knows she can't carry the show. And without Pedro Pascal as the anchor, everything just feels hollow. The emotional resonance from Season 1 is gone. The storytelling is now focused on checking boxes and pushing narratives rather than exploring characters. And viewers noticed. Everybody noticed, right? The conversations on social media have gone from excitement to disappointment, from analysis to overall mockery. This show is a joke. It has always been this way. People are just finding out now more than ever. So let's talk about a couple of elephants in the room. Elephant number 1 obviously has to do with Bella Ramsay, right? Ellie. The character of Ellie in the TV show The Last of Us Season 2, quite frankly, even in Season 1, this is a completely different Ellie from the Ellie we got in the games. She tries her very best, Bella Ramsay, but at the end of the day, she was just never a good cast for Ellie, and a lot of people on social media feel the exact same way. I think it's pretty clear that Bella Ramsay overall is a bad portrayal of Ellie. And then fast forward, and now you have Season 2, where now they've introduced Abby, which is a character that everybody doesn't like. Like, they keep trying to push Abby onto people to try to make you like her, but at the end of the day, nobody likes Abby. From the moment they cast Abby from Season 2 and confirmed her central role in Season 3, the backlash began again, just like it did back when the video game released. Fans remember everything. They didn't forget the gym scene. They didn't forget Joel's death. They didn't forget being told that if they didn't like Abby, they were bigots. So ask yourself, what happens when Season 3 drops and Abby is the main character? When Ellie is sidelined, or worse, made to look like the villain again? And are fans really going to stick around? Are they really going to stick around? Think about this for a second, okay? The last Last of Us Season 3, we are not going to see for another 2 years. The Last of Us Season 3 is slated to release in 2027. If this show has experienced a decline of 55% in terms of viewership for its finale, do you really think that people are going to show up for Season 3? This is exactly what I said before in my previous videos. They scored big at the end of Season 1, and that viewership is what carried Season 2 in its opener when it broke records in its opener for Season 2. But look at the numbers now. This show might have broken its previous record for its opener for Season 2, but that's because people were curious, right? That's because what happened to Joel didn't happen yet. The moment all of that happened, the viewership tanked. It tanked so bad that you went from setting records in a positive way to setting records in a negative way. 55% viewership drop, almost 60%, is abysmal. And anybody can look at that, and sure, you're going to have the shows out there trying to tell you everything is fine, but it's not. This show is going to experience a massive drop-off in Season 3. Nobody is going to care about this show by the time it comes out in 2027. So again, this show is in a death spiral. It's already circling the drain. Between audience fatigue, backlash fatigue, and creative arrogance, it's only a matter of time before HBO cuts its losses. And let's be real, they've done it before, by the way. Westworld, Lovecraft County, Perry Mason, HBO has no issue canceling a show once the numbers don't make sense at all. And if you guys have been keeping up at what's happening over at HBO, I think you'll realize very quickly they don't exactly have the money to play around with anymore. If Season 2 can't hold over 50% of its audience, what the hell is Season 3 gonna do? Why would Season 3, which is centered on a character that caused one of the biggest fan controversies in gaming, do any better than that? It didn't have to be like this though. Druckmann had a chance to tweak the story, of course, adapt it differently, give Joel more time, let the show breathe, but he didn't. Even the actors reportedly had concerns. Pedro Pascal's exit was timed a little too conveniently, and Bella Ramsay has shown hints of being overwhelmed by the pressure. If they had just told a new story, one inspired by the world of The Last of Us, instead of a strict retelling, they might have kept people invested, some people say. But at the end of the day, I feel like you have to respect the source material. That's what people ask for. But the simple truth is that in this scenario, people didn't care about the source material. They didn't like the source material. And we all knew that this was going to end badly. We all knew that people who were going to watch this TV show who never played the video games were going to have a similar reaction. There were streams that I was on about a year ago where I was saying I cannot wait for people to find out about what happens to Joel, because then you're going to see what happened with the video games happen all over again. And that's exactly what's going on here. The Last of Us 1 was a lightning in a bottle. Season 1 captured that somewhat, but instead of building on the success, they repeated the same mistakes that nearly ruined the franchise in 2020. Druckmann didn't listen, HBO didn't pivot, and fans, well, they've had enough. By the time Abby takes the spotlight in Season 3, don't be surprised if The Last of Us joins a long list of shows that burned bright and died fast. The hilarious thing about all this is that it's been suggested that the holiday weekend could have contributed to the lower viewership, and that the numbers might pick up as the week goes on. But it could also just be, I know this might be shocking, maybe people just didn't like the season, right? Maybe people didn't just like season number 2. And the way that it ended, I think it's fair to say that people just overall were checked out. If you are seriously blaming the holiday weekend as to why over 4 million people checked out of Season 2's finale, I have a bridge to sell you, because it's clear that you're crazy. I really think it's ridiculous what's going on with this TV show, and I think it's ridiculous that people continue to defend this show in a means that it's very clear that they don't actually care about the show. It's a weird thing, right? They don't care about the story of The Last of Us. You have a lot of people, most of the people defending this show are mainly just, I guess you could call them normie fans. They're people that never actually played the video games. They're people that are just going based off of what they see in the TV show, and they are trying to desperately defend this show because I don't know if they're attaching themselves ideologically to this show. I really don't have any idea, but it's pretty clear that this show has been a complete miss of the mark with a lot of people that initially were invested. It's one thing if the show never opened up to good numbers, if this show had pretty bad numbers from the beginning, but it's another thing when this show, which very clearly had decent numbers in the beginning, right? It had 8 million plus viewers in the beginning, to drop to 4 million by the end of your second season. A lot of people are unhappy. A lot of people have checked out. And I think you have to acknowledge that no matter how much you want to show for the show. And listen, nobody's saying you can't like the show. You are more than allowed to like something that other people do not like. But when we sit here and we look at the overall situation and think to ourselves, gee, that looks weird, right? When you lose 4.5 million people, that looks weird. I think something might be a little bit wrong here. And I don't think there's anything wrong with saying that. I don't think there's anything wrong with admitting that this show just missed the mark and something clearly went wrong here. So again, you're going to have people defend The Last of Us. You're going to have people come out here and try to pretend like the chuds are the only one that are angry. But you really mean to tell me that there's 4.5 million chuds in the initial season 1's viewership? Are you serious right now? This is the gaslighting that they're going to try to give you, but ultimately people are just ignoring it and they're laughing at it. So you guys can let me know in the comments down below. What do you think ultimately is going to happen here with season 3? By the time 2027 rolls around, are you even going to care? Probably not. Most people are going to move on from this TV show, just like most people have moved on once Joel died in episode 2. Nobody cares anymore. And at this point, it's safe to say that this is going to be one massive flop for the record books that unfortunately HBO is going to have to add to their long list of flops. So special shout out to all of the Bigot Army members out there that have hit that join button. Thank you so much for joining this channel. And if you are not joined on the channel, consider hitting that join button today. I would greatly appreciate it. Let me know in the comments down below what you thought of this video and what's going to happen with The Last of Us Season 2. And I will see you guys on the next one. Hypnotic out.